He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Oh, Mr. Producer, I meant to ask you, are the phones working okay, or I guess we're going to find out, aren't we? Oh, talk at the break. I feel like this is behind the Iron Curtain, the old days, where you can't get something fixed. You know what I mean? You got to do payola. You got to know somebody. It's unbelievable. This has been going on Thursday, Friday, over the weekend. Well, we'll see. What do you think I'm going to start with, ladies and gentlemen? North Korea? No. The budget and the wall? I'll get to that. Do you know there was a blockbuster story in, of all places, Politico? Today, this morning? I really don't have a chance to listen to most of the other hosts unless I'm in the car and I've gotten lost or something. I'm out going to McDonald's, but I'm just too busy right now editing the book, doing Levin TV, doing radio, working on my foundation. But anyway, an incredible story. And I really wouldn't normally take time to delve into a story in Politico, and I would tell this fellow Josh Meyer who wrote it, you better watch out for your career over there, because once I start reading it, you're going to be a marked man. If that is, in fact, how you self-identify. Obama's hidden Iran deal giveaway. You got to listen to this. Don't let your eyes glaze over. This is a big deal. When President Barack Obama announced the one-time gesture of releasing Iranian-born prisoners who, quote, were not charged with terrorism or any violent offensive, unquote, last year, his administration presented the move as a modest trade-off for the greater good of the Iran nuclear agreement and Tehran's pledge to free 5 Americans. Iran had a significantly higher number of individuals, of course, at the beginning of this negotiation that they would have liked to have seen released, one senior Obama administration official told reporters in a background briefing arranged by the White House, adding that we were able to winnow that down to these 7 individuals, 6 of them are Iranian Americans. You notice how this Ben Rose and Susan Rice, how they played the media, and the media were happy to be played. Praetorian Guards as they are. Stay with me. This is a shocking story. But Obama, the senior official and other administration representatives, weren't telling the whole story on January 17, 2016. They weren't telling the whole story in their highly choreographed rollout of the prisoner swap and simultaneous implementation of the 6-party nuclear deal, according to a Politico investigation. In his Sunday morning address to the American people, Obama portrayed the 7 men he freed as civilians. The senior official described them as businessmen convicted of or awaiting trial for mere sanctions related to offensive violations of the trade embargo. In reality, some of them were accused by Obama's own Department of Justice of posing threats to our national security. I really want you to listen to this because today Obama's out there and they're rolling him, looping video of him talking with some college students, and he sounds so professorial. They're allegedly, these 3 of them were allegedly part of an illegal procurement network, listen, supplying Iran with U.S.-made microelectronics with applications in surface-to-air and cruise missiles like the kind Tehran test-fired recently, prompting a still-escalating exchange of threats with the Trump administration. Another was serving an 8-year sentence for conspiring to supply Iran with satellite technology and hardware. As part of the deal, U.S. officials even dropped their demand for $10 million that a jury said the aerospace engineer illegally received from Tehran. And in a series of unpublished court filings, the Justice Department dropped charges and international arrest warrants against 14 other men, all of them fugitives. The administration did not disclose their names or what they were accused of doing, only in an unattributed 152-word statement about the swap, that the U.S., quote, also removed any Interpol red notices and dismissed any charges against 14 Iranians for whom it was assessed that extradition requests were unlikely to be successful. 3 of the fugitives allegedly sought to lease Boeing aircraft for an Iranian airline that authorities say had supported Hezbollah, the U.S. designated terrorist organization. A 4th, Behruz Dolatadeh, was charged with conspiring to buy thousands of U.S.-made assault rifles and illegally import them into Iran. A 5th, Amin Ravhan, was charged with smuggling U.S. military antennas to Hong Kong and Singapore for use in Iran. U.S. authorities also believe he was part of a procurement network providing Iran with high-tech components for an especially deadly type of IED used by Shiite militias to kill hundreds of American troops in Iraq. The biggest fish, though, was Saeed Yabadaba, who had been charged with being part of a conspiracy that from 2005 to 2012 procured thousands of parts with nuclear applications for Iran via China. That included hundreds of U.S.-made sensors for the uranium enrichment centrifuges in Iran, whose progress had been prompting the nuclear deal talks in the first place. When federal prosecutors let's just stop. Obama freed these people, sent them back to Iran. Any potential charges were dropped. Any pending charges were dropped. Those in jail were let out. And he lied. And his surrogates lied. And therefore the media lied about who they were and the significance of this. Because Obama was in heat. He was obsessed. He was in a frenzy to get this deal done. And he surrendered America's national security to do it. All the talk about the connections between the Russians and Trump, and the Russians and some minor guy, this Carter Page, and the Russians this and the Russians that. I despise Putin, but you know what? Barack Obama has done more damage to America than Vladimir Putin could do in his best day. Barack Obama did more damage to our national security, to the United States military, to our border security, to our internal security with our police, than any foreign enemy or opponent could possibly achieve. This is a stunning story. And it gags me to say to Politico, I tip my hat, for once. Now let's go on. When federal prosecutors and agents learned the true extent of the releases, many were shocked and angry. Some had spent years, if not decades, working to penetrate the global proliferation networks that allowed Iranian arms traders both to obtain crucial materials for Tehran's illicit nuclear and ballistic missile programs, and in some cases, to provide dangerous materials to other countries. They didn't just dismiss a bunch of innocent business guys, said one former federal law enforcement supervisor centrally involved in the hunt for Iranian arms traffickers and nuclear smugglers, and then they didn't give a full story of it. And it's now let's stop there for a minute. Now, you got to think outside the box. You got to look at the full horizon here. So the White House is calling the shots on these prosecutions. The White House is calling the shots on the release of these people, right, Mr. Producer? Obama's reaching into the Justice Department. He's reaching into the FBI. He's reaching into the NSA. These calls are coming from the top, him and Kerry. And yet we are to believe, on the matters that I've tried to help uncover, and others have, that all through the summer and the fall and into the winter, when there was incidental collection of information on Trump World and leaking to the media on Trump World that the President of the United States, he didn't know anything. You have no evidence. He didn't know anything. Nobody knows anything. Susan Rice was fine. What's the problem, Mark? What's the problem, Mark? And here they know everything. One day, it'll come out. I don't know if I'll be alive, but one day it'll come out. In its determination to win support for the nuclear deal and prisoner swap from Tehran and from Congress and the American people, the Obama administration did a lot more than just downplay the threats posed by the men it let off the hook, according to Politico's findings. By the way, I want to thank Bob Corker for aiding and abetting Barack Obama in this. If we had gone through the treaty process requiring a supermajority of the Senate for ratification, this information may well have come out. That's the entire purpose of the treaty clause. So the Senate really delves into these things and informs the American people as well as themselves. But they did none of it. They gave Obama a complete pass. Through action in some cases and inaction in others, the White House derailed its own much-touted National Counterproliferation Initiative at a time when it was making unprecedented headway in thwarting Iran's proliferation networks. In addition, the Politico investigation found that Justice and State Department officials denied or delayed requests from prosecutors and agents to lure some key Iranian fugitives to friendly countries so they could be arrested. Similarly, Justice and State, at times in consultation with the White House. Notice, the White House, a.k.a. Obama. Slow down efforts to extradite some suspects already in custody overseas, according to current and former officials and others involved in the counter-proliferation effort. And as far back as the fall of 2014, Obama administration officials began slow-walking some significant investigations and prosecutions of Iranian procurement networks operating in the United States. These previously undisclosed findings are based on interviews with key participants at all levels of government and an extensive review of court records and other documents. Jake Tapper, are you out there? Brian Stetzler, are you still out there? Brian Ross, all clowns. Real clown show. And, of course, the Morning Schmo, a.k.a. Deliverance Boy. Clearly there was an embargo on any Iranian cases, according to the former federal supervisor. Did you hear this? Clearly there was an embargo on any Iranian cases. Of course it pissed people off, but it's more significant that these guys were freed and that people were killed because of the actions of one of them, the supervisor added, in reference to Ravan and the IED network. The supervisor noted that in agreeing to lift crippling sanctions against Tehran, stop right there. How many times did we hear about retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, a great American hero, short-lived director of NSC, advisor to the president? Well, was he on the phone with the Russian ambassador trying to undermine the sanctions with the Russians? Was he doing that? There's no evidence. Hey, look, he lied to the vice president. He lied. He had to go. He lied. But look at that. He's trying violation of the Logan Act. I want you to listen to this again. The supervisor, this is the federal prosecutor, the supervisor, noted that in agreeing to lift crippling sanctions against Tehran, the Obama administration had insisted on retaining the right to go after Iran for its efforts to develop ballistic missile capable of delivering warheads, nuclear warheads, and cruise missiles that could penetrate U.S. defenses, and to illegally procure components for its nuclear military and weapons systems. Then why would you be dismissing the people that you know about who are involved in that, the former official said. These guys were freed. They were freed. Absolutely incredible. The saga of how the Obama administration threw a monkey wrench into its own Justice Department-led counterproliferation effort continues to play out almost entirely out of public view. largely because of the highly secretive nature of the cases and the negotiations that affected them. That may be about to change, as the Trump administration and both chambers of Congress have pledged to crack down on Tehran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Last Wednesday, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson announced a government-wide review of U.S. policy toward Iran in the face of, quote, alarming and ongoing provocations that export terror and violence, destabilizing more than one country at a time. Now, I'm going to go on with this. This is an incredible, actual, investigative news report. Absolutely stunning, is it not? Mr. Gun Control, Mr. Second Amendment, is Mr. Nuclear Proliferation and ICBM proliferation. Lying through his teeth constantly, secret deals, letting out people who are providing technological information to the enemy to help them build nukes and IEDs. I'm telling you what, I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Now, we have a very short segment. I'm going to continue this after the bottom of the hour. I think it is absolutely crucial. This affects the safety and security of this country. There's absolutely no question about that. And how we were sold down the river with lies and secrets and obstructions so Obama could have a legacy and claim that he made a peace deal with Iran and nobody else could do it. And I want you to remember, on top of all this, $150 billion or so was released to the Iranian regime. I want you to remember that $1.7 billion, is my recollection, was given directly to the Iranian regime, 400 million of which, reports said, and you may recall this, delivered under cover of darkness. It was either an unmarked jet or another country's jet. And we're wheeling out the hard currency for the Iranian regime like we're a bunch of mobsters. Every tactic used by Obama would have caused the impeachment of another president. The failure of the Republicans in the Senate to hold hearings in pursuant to a treaty is just disgraceful. You're going to want to know more of the facts, I believe, when I return.
Right versus left is right versus wrong. Call Mark at 877-381-3811.
Now, I've said for the longest time, but I need to underscore this. This act of duplicity and this act of absolute utter appeasement by Barack Obama and John Kerry will result in war. It's going to take a war now to dislodge the nuclear program from that regime in Iran. And it's not going to be easy because of the amount of resources now that have been made available to Iran, Iran's alliance with other countries, including Russia. What has been done here is unbelievable. And I wish John McCain would just shut the hell up about Devin Nunes and start explaining what took place here. Pretend Barack Obama's a Republican, and then go after him. Now let's continue in this truly incredible report. Valerie Lindsay, executive director of the nonpartisan Wisconsin Project on Nuclear Arms Control, said Obama administration officials made a shrewd political calculation in focusing public attention on just those 7 men it was freeing in the United States and portraying them as mere sanctions violators. That way, she said, quote, they just didn't think it was going to make too many waves, and I think they were right. But Lindsay, who closely tracks the U.S. counter-proliferation effort against Iran, said that by letting so many men off the hook for such a wide range of offenses, Washington, notice they don't ever use Obama's name. Washington has effectively given, I'll change it, Obama has effectively given its blessing to Iran's continuing defiance of international laws. Former Obama administration officials deny that, saying the men could still be prosecuted if they continue their illegal activity. Oh, isn't that nice? And how exactly are you going to get your hands on them? How many bites at the nuclear apple do they get? But with their cases dropped, international arrest warrants dismissed, and investigative assets redirected, the men, especially these 14 fugitives, can now continue activities the U.S. considers to be serious threats to its national security, Lindsay said. This is astounding, this story. This is a scandal, she said. The cases bear all the hallmarks of exactly the kinds of national security threats we're still going after. It's stunning and hard to understand why we would do this. And of course, she's exactly right. Most, if not all, of the Justice Department lawyers and prosecutors involved in counterproliferation initiative were kept in the dark about how their cases were being used as bargaining chips, according to interviews with more than a dozen current and former officials. So were the federal agents from the FBI and the Departments of Homeland Security and Commerce, who for years had been operating internationally, often undercover, on the front lines of the hunt for Iranian arms and weapons smugglers. It wasn't just that prosecutors and agents with years of detailed knowledge about the cases were left out of the consultations about the significance of the 21 men let go in the swap. The lack of input also meant that negotiators were making decisions without fully understanding how the releases would impact the broader and interconnected matrix of U.S. investigations. Has this been on the national news today, Mr. Producer? Not that I know of. Has it been on any cable channel? Not that I know of. Has it been on any network TV? Not that I know of. At the time, those investigations, and this is a liberal outlet, at the time those investigations were providing American officials with a roadmap of how exactly Tehran was clandestinely building its nuclear and ballistic missile programs and maintaining its military with the unwitting assistance of so many U.S. weapons parts and technology companies. The cases were also providing key operational details of how the Iranian procurement networks operate and who in Tehran was calling the shots. And Obama killed it. Obama killed it. So when they downplayed it, it really infuriated people, said Kenneth McDonald, a former senior Homeland Security official who helped establish the Multi-Agency Coordination Center at the heart of the National Counterproliferation Initiative. They'd spent months or years on these cases, and the decisions were made with no review of what the implications were, he said. He retired in 2013, but keeps in contact with agents as co-principal investigator at the DHS-affiliated Institute for Security Policy at Northeastern University. He said there was absolutely no consultation. In a series of interviews, senior officials from the Obama White House and Justice and State Departments said the prisoner swap was a bargain for the U.S., given the release of Washington Post reporter Jason Reznian, former Marine. We know. Those senior officials acknowledged that all but a handful of people were kept in the dark, but said top representatives of the Justice Department and FBI helped vet the 21 Iranian proliferators, and that then Attorney General Loretta Lynch herself participated in blocking some other individuals demanded by Tehran from inclusion in potential prisoner trade. Too bad she didn't tell the men and women on the front lines. The condition was that they not be engaged in anything remotely attached to violence or proliferation activities, said one senior Obama official familiar with the swap negotiations, and none of them were in any stage where they were providing assistance to the Tehran government. That may be true for the 7 men granted clemency in the U.S., but it certainly was not the case for the 14 fugitives, writes Politico. These were people under active investigation who we wanted very badly because they were operating at such a high level that they could help us begin to find out what was inside the black box of how Iran's procurement networks really operated, said Aaron Arnold, a former intelligence analyst at CPC-2, the FBI Special Counterproliferation Center unit dedicated to thwarting Iranian nuclear and weapons smuggling. And this guy wasn't even talked to. Without that kind of strategic insight, it leaves our analysts, but more importantly, our policymakers, just guessing at what Iran is up to and how to stop it. Should I stop? If I'm sitting in the car right now as a professional radio listener, which I used to be, I am mesmerized. I'm telling everyone in the car to keep it down, and I turn up the volume. And I'm listening to every syllable, not because I'm reading it, but because this story is a blockbuster. 15 months later, the fallout from the nuclear deal and prison swap, and questions about the events leading up to them, continued to reverberate through the Justice Department and the specialized units at the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and Commerce Department, created to neutralize the threat posed by Iran's nuclear and military ambitions. The National Counterproliferation Initiative, created with much fanfare a decade ago, has suffered greatly, many participants said, even as they acknowledged that metrics are hard to come by. Much of the work is done in secret and in long-range efforts that can't be publicly disclosed, much less measured in annual arrest or conviction statistics. But key enforcement efforts are in limbo as the result of stalled or stymied investigations and prosecutions. And the trail of some high-value targets has gone cold, numerous participants said. At least 6 times in the run-up to the nuclear deal, federal investigators scrambled to get Justice and State Department approval to lure top Iranian targets into traveling internationally in order to arrest them, according to one top Obama administration justice official and other participants. But the requests weren't approved, and the targets vanished, depriving the United States of some of its best opportunities to gain insight into the workings of Tehran's nuclear, missile, and military programs, the sources said. I have to stop every now and then and just think about what I'm reading. Our President of the United States. We would say we have this opportunity, and if we don't do it now, we'll never have the opportunity ever again, the recently departed Justice Department official recalls. But he added, there were periods of time where State Department cooperation was necessary, but didn't come. Obama Secretary of State John Kerry declined to comment through a former senior State Department official who said certain requests might have been delayed temporarily because they came at particularly sensitive times in the negotiations, but only with the concurrence of the White House and the Justice Department. But even now, many experienced agents and prosecutors say they are reluctant to pursue counterproliferation cases for fear they won't go anywhere. They say they have also received no helpful guidance on what they can and cannot investigate going forward, given the complicated parameters of the Iran deal and lifting of nuclear sanctions. Some said they are biding their time to see how hardliners in the new administration, including Trump himself, deal with Iran. But others have grown so frustrated that they have moved on from the counterproliferation effort, taking with them decades of investigative experience and relationships cultivated with other government agencies and cooperating U.S. companies, a number of current and former officials said. And critical momentum has been lost, many say, as the 10-year anniversary of the initiative in October approaches. This has erased literally years, many years of hard work and important cases that can be used to build toward other cases and even bigger players in Iran's nuclear and conventional weapons programs, said former Justice Department counterproliferation prosecutor David Locke Hall, adding that the swap demolished the deterrent effect that the arrests and convictions may have had. Quote, even though these men's crimes posed a direct threat to U.S. national security. Let me repeat this. And the man's on the record by name, the prosecutor. Even though these men's crimes posed a direct threat to U.S. national security. The Obama administration has essentially told them their efforts have produced nothing more than political capital that can be traded away when politically expedient. Quote, unquote. And it goes on. Let's see here. By the time of the nuclear deal in Prison Swamp, the U.S. government had spent 35 years in pursuit of Iran's ever more sophisticated web of smugglers, traffickers, transport operatives, and procurement agents. In 1979, Jimmy Carter declared that Iran constituted an unusual and extraordinary threat to U.S. security after Islamic revolutionaries overran the U.S. Embassy. We had a raft of economic sanctions against Iran, as you well know. And as Iran's suspected nuclear weapons program ramped up, so did the U.S. effort to stop it. Overseas, U.S. intelligence operatives shadowed Iranian procurement agents, cultivated informants, used cyber weapons to sabotage Iran's clandestine program. The U.S. military tried to interdict illicit shipments headed for Tehran. Look at all this. Now, this is public. I'm not making it public. It's public. The Treasury Department issued endless rounds of targeted sanctions, but each time it restricted access to global markets for suspect individuals and companies. Tehran would simply create new ones. And successive administrations tried the diplomatic route to slow or stop Iranian proliferation, including Tehran's efforts to share weapons and research with other enemies of the United States, I might add, like North Korea, without success. In response, federal law enforcement agents and prosecutors were deployed to shut down the Iranian procurement networks and dam the... I don't need to go on. So Barack Obama blew it all up. Blew it all up. Decades of work. Decades of resources, human and financial. Decades of building connections and finding out what the Iranians were up to as they move to build their nuclear armaments and their ICBMs. And you liberals on the West Coast in Los Angeles, guess what? You'd be first. Now I want to ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. Why doesn't this receive even 1/1000th of the attention of the Russian connection, quote unquote, with Trump world? And the allegations that somebody may have been trying to undermine the sanctions without any facts whatsoever. Should this not be front and center? I am telling you, this administration not only did these things, but at the same time, it was surveilling the Israeli prime minister. It was surveilling the ambassador from Israel to the United States. It was getting quote-unquote incidental surveillance information of members of Congress, of Jewish groups, prominent Jewish individuals or Gentiles who opposed the Iran deal. And they didn't close their eyes and ears to the information. They wanted more of it. I am going to continue to do the best I can, even though I'm far away legally from being able to do much, to get into this clandestine activity. Landmark Legal's trying to get into this to find out what took place and to encourage the FISA court to act. But Barack Obama sold out his country for a legacy. That's exactly what he did. He sold out his country. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
There's never been such treachery by any president. Certainly not in modern American history. I don't think in any time in our history. Never been such treachery. Deceiving the American people, unconscionable secret deals, cutting deals with the enemy that empowers the enemy. Do you think Franklin Roosevelt would have released these men? No. You know what he would have done? He would have called his attorney general and said, all right, do whatever you can and get them executed. That's what he did. You think Harry Truman would have? You think John Kennedy would have? No, they wouldn't have. What an appalling Benedict Arnold. But I'm going to tell you the story one day of Benedict Arnold, because Obama doesn't even reach the level of a Benedict Arnold. And what people should be saying now, instead of Benedict Arnold, they should be saying Barack Obama. Wow, you're a real Barack Obama. Hey, what do you mean by that? I mean you sold us out. That's exactly what I mean by that. Commander-in-Chief of which country? You know, one of the biggest problems with the Liberal National Education Association and their control over what is taught in school is the awful revisionist history they teach our kids. That's why there's so many young adults who don't understand why America is exceptional and all it takes to keep us free and prosperous. That's why you and your children need to take together, as a family, the Hillsdale College free online course, American Heritage. It's the real American story you're not going to get anywhere else. You need to make this happen. Just set aside 45 minutes one night this week after dinner. Watch the first lecture by my friend, brilliant president of Hillsdale College, Dr. Larry Arnn, on why it's important to study American history. I guarantee you'll be hooked. Now, your kids won't get this in school, and we didn't either. It's available for free for teachers in their classes, too. Sign up to take the American Heritage course at levinforhillsdale.com. That's Levin for Hillsdale.com. As always, it's free, and you and your family can watch the lectures anytime you want. That's levinforhillsdale.com, Levin for Hillsdale.com. What a great school Hillsdale is. Now, we're going to plow ahead. There's other things, too, but really, today, it wasn't hard to pick the top subject, the marquee subject. Barack Obama has been caught with his fingerprints on this, ladies and gentlemen. And I ask you, why are the media ignoring this? Why is the New York Times more interested in Bill O'Reilly, even though he's already left Fox, than what Barack Obama did to our country? Well, we know why, don't we? The same reason they didn't cover the Holocaust. I'll be right back.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Now, if you'll bear with me, there's definitely a lot more to jump into, but before I do, Cato Byrne passed away yesterday. Now, many of you might remember her from the Capitol Gang on CNN with Bob Novak and Al Hunt and so forth. She was also a star at National Review. She, along with John O'Sullivan, had encouraged me to be a contributing editor, which I was for a period of time, and then I left. But more than that, she's such a decent human being, truly one of the great messengers and minds of the conservative movement. She had a wit about her that is indescribable. And the timing of her wit was indescribable. And she could make a point in 5 words that takes me an entire book. Cut right to the chase. And the person that she was making the point to would kind of smile, and as they walked away, wondered, I wonder what she meant by that. But a very kind-hearted lady. And she would take you under her wing. And to be honest with you, when she was on the Capitol Gang, I would try and shoot her some information, things that mattered to me, and she would use it often. And she's going to be missed by those of us who know her. The last few years, unfortunately, I didn't really keep up with her. It's just this job, all 4 jobs. The amount of time I have to maintain contacts, it's sad. It's one of the sad realities that I personally have to deal with, but there's nothing I can do about it. But she would have these parties, not these wild parties or anything, nothing weird, not elitist or anything, but people could come and go. And everybody wanted to be there. Because they were fun, they were interesting, they were substantive. And her husband, Jim, an Army veteran, as I recall, wonderful, wonderful man. What an outstanding couple. And two very patriotic young men for sons. I had no idea she was sick until I got an email yesterday. It's either Sunday morning or Saturday morning from Barbara Comstock, our representative here. All of us go way back. And I literally had to sit down because she was telling me the end is near. I said, the end is near. And as I understand it, she had lung cancer. But you go back and you read some of the things she wrote at National Review under Bread and Circus. And she was an invisible hand, as we say, behind the scenes for so many years. And I know she was involved in choosing Rich Lowry to take over National Review. He's terrific. And she was supportive of over there Ramesh and Jonah and Catherine and Andy McCarthy and others. And it's a big hole. She was originally on the staff of Senator James Buckley. Was a great senator for 6 years. And very close to the Buckley family. But we all knew her as Kate. Happy, smiling Kate, but definitely no Pollyanna. Substantive, brilliant, sharp, great judgment. And my family will mourn for her. And we wish her family all the best. Which seems kind of an empty comment, but they deserve all the best. And I know I didn't say what I wanted to say adequately, but that's the way it is. I also want to address the attack on Sean Hannity. You know, I wouldn't be in radio if it wasn't for two men. Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity. Well, three men, really, and Bob Grant. But Rush Limbaugh, listening to him, learning from him. He once invited me to his home or to a studio where I could watch what he did. And, for many years he would call me F. Lee Levin. I would shoot him information on the law and so forth. Rush is his own man. He doesn't need anybody to write anything for him. But that's not my point. He also wanted to get things right. He's not a lawyer. And just a terrific man. And the other, Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity first saw me on, I think it was Crossfire on CNN, debating, maybe it was Carville. And he reached out to me. He said, whoa, I just wanted to meet you and so forth. And he was starting at Fox. He was also a local host on WABC in New York. But long story short, Sean would ask me to substitute for him, every few days during the Christmas break. And I said, well, I don't know how to do this. I mean, I've always been interested in it. I actually tried it when I was 16 on WCAU, now WPHT in Philadelphia. And he said, no, you'll do it, you do it. You know how Sean is. He also sat me down and had me put together these 5x7 cards, these blue cards. Call them formatics, because he said, you're going to know your substance like nobody else. He said, but you have to know how to get in and out of the breaks and so forth and so on. And he and Rush encouraged me all along the way. to do this. To do this. I know this man like a brother. He's a religious man. He talks about it now and then. He's a man of deep faith. He's a God-fearing man. And he's been at Fox for over 20 years. And he's been on radio longer than that. And there's now an attempt to destroy his character. And it's a pretty shabby, pathetic, thin attempt at that. Unbelievable. And the person who's made this allegation is a person who attacks virtually everybody she comes in contact with, and people she doesn't even come in contact with. And she has stepped far away from what she originally said to a local host in Tulsa, Alabama. Far away. Because I happen to know Sean, and I've known him long enough, he's not going to roll over for anybody. For anybody. When you accuse somebody of a heinous thing, and they are innocent, they fight back. Just as I would fight back and have the last 8 weeks when I came under attack by the media. By the very media that protects the left and Obama and Clinton and all the rest of it. And I wasn't going to put up with it. If you don't have your integrity, you don't have anything. I've told my family, when I'm on my deathbed, I just want to know I lived my life the way I should have lived my life. Not as a perfect human being, as there are none, but as somebody who tried very hard to do what's right and what's moral. And I know Hannity feels exactly the same way. So there's an attack on him. And this attack, there's an effort now to take down the conservative movement. There's an effort now to take down the Fox News channel. I've had my issues with the Fox News channel, but I don't want them taken down. I think they've made terrible, terrible mistakes over there. Not because certain personnel didn't do what some of the accusations that are claimed, but from a legal perspective, they have opened themselves up to everything and anything, legitimate and illegitimate. But Hannity's not going to take this sitting down, and I wouldn't either. And I wouldn't either. And the New York Times and the Washington Post have been very aggressively investigating, and Huffington Post and the Daily Beast and network shows, all of which have ignored the story that I just read to you. But there's a little site run by Dan Abrams. You've seen him on ABC, I believe, on cable, called Law News. And here's the headline from 8:59 a.m. today, written by Rachel Stockman. Despite reports, former Fox guest now claims she was never sexually harassed by Sean Hannity. Now that should be the end of it. Debbie Schlussville, a former Fox News guest. By the way, she has accused me of having sympathies towards Hezbollah because I backed the late, great Senator Fred Thompson in the Republican primary, short-lived, for President of the United States. Because he chose Spencer Abraham to be his campaign manager or finance manager, who she claims was a jihadist, former senator from Michigan. And you should go ahead and Google her and see who this person is, who the media are now glomming onto. Take a look. Draw your own conclusions. Debbie Schlussel, a former Fox News guest, and by the way, who hasn't been a former Fox News guest? Anyway, appeared on a local radio show on Friday and recounted an incident where Sean Hannity purportedly asked her to a hotel. And when she rebuffed his advances, she claims she was ostracized by the network star. The story has gone viral, garnering headlines like Sean Hannity accused of sexually harassing Fox News guest in publications like the Daily Beast and the Huffington Post. Now in an interview with LawNews.com on Monday morning, Schlussel is denying that she was ever sexually harassed by Sean Hannity. While Schlussel stands by her description of the incident, she told us that she doesn't believe what happened between the two amounted to sexual harassment by any legal definition. Quote, I would never accuse him of that. Sexual harassment has a special meaning under the law, and I would never accuse him of that, Schlussel, an attorney herself, said. Schlussel said the interaction happened in the early 2000s when Hannity was in Detroit taping a show. He tried to get me to go back to the hotel after the show after he and his executive producer, Bill Shine, treated me horribly, she said on the radio program. Schlussel later clarified that it wasn't his hotel room, but rather his hotel. She told LawNews.com that she did go on the show following the incident, but after that was banned from Fox News. You know, some of these people are banned from Fox News because they suck. I'm just saying. I don't know if she did or not, but I'm telling you that some people are not good, and so they're banned. Or they're dropped, maybe not banned. But I don't know. I never thought I was sexually harassed by Sean Hannity. I thought he was weird and creepy, not someone I liked, she said. Speaking of weird and creepy, no, I've never been sympathetic to Hezbollah, you jerk. Following the radio interview on Friday, Hannity issued a strongly worded statement denying Schlussel's claims, saying he plans to take legal action against her for possible libel. Quote, in caps, let me be clear. The comments about me on a radio show this week by this individual are 100% false and a complete fabrication, unquote. He went on, this individual is a serial harasser who's been lying about me for well over a decade. The individual has a history, this is what Hannity's statement is, of making provably false statements against me in an effort to slander, smear, and besmirch my reputation. The individual has not just slandered me over the years, but many people who this individual disagrees with. Now, Schlussel responded to Hannity's legal threats, telling LawNews.com she believed they were laughable, and that she's also contemplating countersuing him based on his statements on Sunday, in which he called her a serial harasser. Well, ladies and gentlemen, just Google Hannity and Schlussel and check it for yourself. It's defamatory, she said. Everything I said was true, and truth is an absolute bar to defamation. He, on the other hand, has a murky record on truth. Well, Schlussel, being a lawyer, must understand that you go through what's called discovery, depositions under oath, under penalty of perjury. You go through an examination. That's how lawsuits work. Now, this is in Law News. The accuser has a history of making allegations against Hannity back in 2010. Schlussel, who Gawker claimed at the time was a crazy birth blogger, quote-unquote, wrote a blog post claiming that the Freedom Alliance, a war veteran charity, which is supported by Hannity, was skimming donations and was all a huge scam. According to a 2010 letter obtained by LawNews.com, Thomas Kilgannon, the charity's founder and president, fired back in a note to donors. The blog posting accuses our friend Hannity of personally benefiting from Freedom Alliance. This is false, and he goes on. And I participated in Freedom Alliance at my own expense. It was a magnificent, magnificent thing for many of the returning vets and their children. In any event, there you have it. Robin Williams, suicide. She called selfish for committing suicide. And on and on. You can Google this yourself. The web's out there. Absolutely appalling attempt to destroy Hannity. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I'm just thrilled to know, Mr. Producer, that over at CNN and MSNBC and CBS and ABC and NBC, that they live like, what? I'm just glad that they're so well behaved in these various news organizations. At the Washington Post and the New York Times, oh yeah. No skullduggery going on in these places. It's an amazing thing. Liberals don't believe the morals mean a thing, and yet they live by these morals. It's true. Over there at the Washington Post, like priests and nuns. I've never seen anything like it. All very well behaved. CNN. Oh, CNN, you boys over there. I'm telling you. We know, don't we? Wink, wink, wink. How many times have I suggested something's going on over there, Mr. Producer? Last 3 or 4 days? Just saying. I'll be right back.
More logic than allowed by law. The Mark Levin Show. Call now at 877-381-3811.
This is the UFC of broadcasting, ladies and gentlemen. I just tell you what I think. I base it on my principles and philosophy, history, economics. Yes, current events. And for that, I've had death threats. For that, I've had people threaten me. I've had people accuse me of taking money, the most disgusting things you can possibly think of. I put the brass knuckles on. I don't sit back and take this crap. And you can't. And you simply can't. You've got to decide, of course, when to hit back and when not to. But it's amazing what we've come to here, that people can't express themselves without having just the most disgusting allegations made about them. By gadflies and so forth. I'm not talking about O'Reilly. I don't know anything about O'Reilly. O'Reilly and I despised each other. I'm just talking about my own situation and some of my other friends in this business. It's incredible. And even when they pretend to provide an exposition of this show and me, you get things like Divided States of America on Frontline, where all they do is they cherry-pick little comments I make to a particularly obnoxious caller. They play nothing about our discussions that we have here about philosophy, about John Locke or the Constitution and the natural law. None of it. Zero. Because they want to convey the harshest possible notion of what a conservative talk show host is. We discuss more college and post-college level substance on this show than you will find on PBS or NPR or anywhere else in broadcasting. On the other hand, there are other things we discuss where there's passion and emotion involved, and there's certainly interaction, which you don't get in these other program formats. And then you get men like Ted Koppel, who's truly an obnoxious, phony elitist, who's just very, very upset that the medium that he used to control and that a handful of networks used to control, or a Class C talent like he can rise to the top based on the Iranian kidnappings. Day 333. Good, Ted. And then they lash out. Or look how pathetic Dan Rather is today. On the sideline shooting spitballs. But they all expose themselves, don't they, as the big-time liberals that they are. Koppel, Rather, Can't remember all of them. Don't want to remember all of them. Cronkite turns out to be a radical leftist. Vast majority of them are exactly what we've said they are. And so are their progeny on cable and on network TV too. Exactly what we say they are. So a Republican president, whether you like the Republican president or not, is always on defense. Look at this Barack Obama. Look at the things he did. Look at the things he got away with. They don't even care. You think Jake Tapper gives a damn? Doesn't even enter his mind. You think that fool Brian Stelter gives a damn? He's on the phone now trying to find out ways to screw somebody over at Fox. What does CNN care about Fox? What do they care about any of these people for? There's real news going on there, and there's real areas to investigate. I have to say, and I'm no fan of Politico because 98%, take a look at their homepage. It's really pathetic, full of propaganda. But this one story, it's like a diamond in the rough. And even though it's a liberal outlet, the liberal media outlets, the other ones, ignore it because it doesn't help their man. Absolutely ignore it. This would be breaking news if any Republican did this. And it should be. Should be. You know, I wish this bag under my eye would just go away. No, if that sounds like you every morning, you're not alone. Bags and puffiness under the eyes are a problem for millions of American men and women, until now. Introducing the new Genicel serum with plant stem cell technology from Chamonix. Now, I'm not even going to quote Susan from New Jersey. I'm going to quote Teddy from Virginia. My buddy Teddy, a cardiologist. So I'm minding my own business. They have us over for Passover. And I'm eyeballing the food. I'm ready to go. And he's bragging to me about Genicel. And that he loves it. And that he uses it. Then a family member says to me, by the way, I can use more of that, wink, wink. In other words, I'm supposed to buy it, which I do. And so that was part of the discussion. I'm not kidding you. It's true. So this is the thing about Genicel. The crow's feet, the small lines, they disappear. They do. People use it under their eyes. They use it around their cheekbones. They use it on their eyelids. And I told you, my family members have used it. My buddy uses it. And with its instant effects, you'll see results in the first 12 hours. Guaranteed or your money back. Let me repeat that because that's important. You'll see results in the first 12 hours, guaranteed or your money back. Now, from now until Mother's Day, that's right, Mother's Day, get a free month supply. Hello! Get a free month supply of Genicel with your order. Call now. And express shipping's also free. So may I encourage you to do this? You've been listening about it. I'm going to strongly encourage you to act quickly. Call 800-SKIN-604, 800-SKIN-604. Order today and Chamonix will include a surprise luxury gift absolutely free. 800-SKIN-604. That's 800-SKIN-604. Wonderful product. Oh, heck, Mr. Producer, I don't have my call screen up. Give me somebody good, would you? Yes. Sirius Satellite, St. Louis, we have Mary. Go.
Hey, Mark. First of all, I love your show. And
Thank
second
you.
of all, sometimes you make me laugh because your wit is hilarious. But
Thank
I don't
you.
even know if people get it, but it's funny.
Some do, some don't. That's all right. I get it.
Tonight, I am not happy. In fact,
Yes.
I'm angry about what you read, all about this Obama stuff, and Kerry, and Loretta Lynch, and this is treason, Mark.
You know what's interesting? You say it's treason, and if I agree with you, they can say, well, you know, the penalty for treason is death. But it is. If it's not treason, it's something certainly like it, isn't it?
Yes, and can I ask you why?
Yes.
Why did they do this? What
Because
do you think?
Obama wanted a legacy. You know, I'm sick and tired of giving Obama the benefit of the doubt. There are no more benefits of any doubt. The fact of the matter is the man is an ideologue. The man feels that America is an imperial colonial country. The man traveled the world condemning America and condemning other democratic countries like Israel. Israel's in the middle of a hellhole, and he attacks them. But who does he reach out to? The Castro brothers, mass murderers, the Iranian regime, mass murderers, and they back terrorism and so forth. Who does he reach out to?
Well said, Mark. He's left everything's been...
The man has helped arm the Iranians. He did nothing with the North Koreans. Our current president's trying to address this. Nothing. He turned his back on Syria after drawing his red line. And by red line, I mean red line, if you get my drift. He crossed the red line. I mean, look at Libya. He helps bomb Gaddafi out of office. Gaddafi was in a cage. He wasn't bothering us anymore. Now we got terrorists running wild. You look at Iraq. We're trying to make gains back in Iraq that were lost under Obama, which we had gained under Bush. The military, even with the Trump budget of it, which is effectively a 3% increase, not a 10% increase, it's not nearly enough to rebuild the United States military. Obama did more damage, and I keep saying it, to the United States military than Putin could ever have done, and I despise Putin. We have open borders now, utter lawlessness in Democrat strongholds. Obama did that. Obama encouraged that. These neo-Confederate nullification towns and so forth are just amazing to me that they get away with this and so forth and so on. But this article in Politico, which I caught really early this morning because I'm just doing so much work right now, and I read, I said, holy mackerel. First of all, it's Politico, but that's secondary. The story, and it goes on for 18 printed pages, and I couldn't read all of it. I said, I have got to discuss this with my audience right out of the box. I don't care if 10% tune out, they want to talk about meatballs or whatever. It doesn't matter. This is incredible. Incredible. The kind of people who've been let loose in the world as a result of what Obama and Kerry did, and I want to thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Can we get another caller, Mr. Producer, please? WRPW in Illinois. John, how are you, sir?
Hi, Mr. Levin.
All right. Go right ahead.
Hello? Yes.
Yes, sir.
I have a observation that I would like for you to comment on. And what really makes me mad, that was outrageous what Obama and his administration did, what you were talking about at the first of the show. And what really infuriates me that is crazy-making is we've got young 19, 25-year-old kids in prison for 3 years for smoking pot. You've got Hillary Clinton, Obama, idiot, John Kerry, and Loretta Lynch out rich and free. And that's my first comment. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, have you ever read the book, The Liberal Mind, from a University of Chicago psychiatrist? And the subtitle of the book is The Psychological Causes of Political Madness. Basically, no, really. It's a university.
No, I think it's great.
Well, and I've read it, and I've forgotten the author's name, but he's a famous psychiatrist. And his subtitle, his basic theme throughout the thing is they do, and he comes, it's a physiological, biological thing. They do not face reality. So you have all these people throughout the world who don't face reality, and they've all grouped together. And that's the liberal mind.
I see.
And then the final thing I want to ask you and comment on.
So this is a book I just pulled up that came out in 2011. I don't know if I heard of it or not. There's so many books that come through here. But anyway, I may have actually, I could be wrong. I may have had the author on the program. But anyway, go right ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, throughout history, this is nothing new. It's like the emperor wears no clothes. All great people throughout history who simply told the truth, from the Joseph of the Bible to Socrates, to the Jewish people historically, Jesus Christ, Galileo, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Well, you make a very interesting point because, as you point out, Socrates was given a choice, and he used the hemlock to he was basically forced to kill himself, and he wouldn't lie and he wouldn't beg. And it's quite fascinating what people wrote down about what he said during this trial. And and Aristotle often wondered, and Aristotle being a student of Plato, Plato being a student of Socrates, if Aristotle feared for his life. And of course Cicero had to go on the run. Cicero, another brilliant man who believed in natural law and these other things, and he went on the run for some time, and he was hidden by other Romans. He had been a senator, or was a senator, and finally somebody gave him up after a couple of years on the run, and he famously was, I believe he was in the back of a cart, and he knew they were going to kill him. And in the back of the cart, he stretched out his neck, and he basically told them he knew what they were going to do, that they shouldn't do it, that they will regret doing it, but go ahead and do it. And there are others. There's Sidney, who most people don't know about, but our founders knew all about him, and Jefferson even cites him in a letter. There's Thomas More. He was put to death. There's, we can go down the list. I mean, John Locke feared for his life. He left his country for some period of time. Many, many of them did. All right, my friend, excellent call. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, I heard a pretty intense story out of Racine, Wisconsin the other day, and I want to share it with you. So this house catches fire. No one was home, and it took a while for neighbors to notice the problem. And at the end of the day, $40,000 in damage. Priceless items gone. If you're not there when a fire starts, who will be there to save your home? For Simply Safe Home Security, user Tricia, Simply Safe was there. While she was on vacation, her home caught fire, and she was 3 states away. But with Simply Safe, her smoke alarm went off. The fire department was alerted immediately. And they got there in time to save her home. Simply Safe's round-the-clock professional security monitoring is just $14.99 a month. $14.99 a month. Get 24/7 connection to dispatch and lightning-fast response times in emergencies with Simply Safe Home Security. Order today. Order today. You'll not only protect yourself, you not only protect your family, you'll not only protect your home, you'll not only protect your things, you'll get my special 10% discount. Go right now to simplysafemark.com. And this isn't your usual type of alarm company. This is cutting edge. This is something you can do yourself. You can make your own determinations on what you want to do. It's really cool, by the way. It's really cool to do it. Yes, I do have it. That's simplysafemark.com and get 10% off your home security system. simplysafemark.com. Check it out right now. simplysafemark.com. Give me another caller, Mr. Producer, if you would, please. On the Mark Levin app, Mark. Talking to Mark from California. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. For anyone still scratching their heads trying to understand Barack Obama and his actions, 2 words, Alger Hiss.
The difference was Alger Hiss was advising a president.
Well, maybe Alger Hiss would have gone further if he hadn't been.
So your point is this is even worse. He is the president.
Yes, you're right.
And you know, you and I will be condemned for saying this. It's just how do you read this Politico article? This political breaking news story, I'll call it exactly what it is, and not reach that conclusion? I mean, Hiss was tipping off the Soviets, correct?
Yes.
Barack Obama is arming the Iranian enemy and basically doing anything necessary to get them to come to the table and agree to be armed in 10 years rather than 10 months. I've never seen anything like this. And the lack of critical news coverage as a result of this story is unbelievable to me. Whether it's conservative media or the phony statist media or any media, it is absolutely unbelievable to me. This is a strong, well-written, well-sourced story. I'm shocked to say in Politico. 1 out of 1,000. Okay, but there's the one. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. It's already 2 hours into the program, hour 3. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. So there's no questioning, ladies and gentlemen, whether the Iranians colluded with Barack Obama or vice versa. Not for an election, obviously. But they got arms, essentially, right? They're able to arm up. They got $150 billion. They got $1.7 billion, $400 million of which was delivered in the middle of the night on a tarmac in Iran. Unbelievable. And now we know Barack Obama lied about the nature of the individuals and what they had done who were released back to Iran. These were people who are assisting Iran with stealing technology, getting access to munitions of various sorts, including technologies that would assist them with their nuclear arms program. Now, I know people are listening to this program, including my father, who's almost 92 years old, and he is just, I'm guessing, he'll call me tonight, flummoxed. I know there are men and women listening to this program who've served in the military, and they can't believe what they're hearing. I know there are men and women in the audience who work at the NSA and the CIA and other intelligence departments and agencies, and they're disgusted. I know there are men and women who work at the FBI and other federal law enforcement agencies, and men and women in law enforcement across this country who cannot believe what I'm telling you. What this president did, Barack Obama, to this country. And he walks around smiling, lecturing. Man who had the thinnest resume of any person to ever become president of the United States, meaning no resume. None. The damage he did to this country, the damage he's done to our immigration system, our cities and communities with this sanctuary city crap, the damage he's done to law enforcement, the United States military, our federal budget, our foreign policy, our allies. It's immeasurable. Absolutely immeasurable. And I'm so sick and tired of hearing these liberals. Oh, the first 100 days, the first 100 days. So Franklin Roosevelt, for political propaganda, talks about the first 100 days. He has supermajorities in the House and Senate, rams through endless legislation. And now every president's measured by the first 100 days. The first 100 days. You know who the biggest loser is? The first 100 days, Mitch McConnell. You know who the second biggest loser is? Paul Ryan. They're in charge of legislation, ladies and gentlemen. They're in charge. And so far they've demonstrated how pathetic they are, despite what the circle nerds, the corporatists, and the other buffoons who write at the Wall Street Journal editorial page have to say about it. They didn't have a tax bill ready? What are they, stupid? I heard somebody today say, you can't do Obamacare in 100 days. Really? Well, by my calculation, they had 6, 7, 8 years to do Obamacare and to get ready for it and put something on the table and know that they could coalesce around it. This issue about building the wall. Who told you over and over again the Mexican government's never going to build the wall? Well, we can do it this way. No, they're not. And who also told you that Chuck Schumer will threaten a filibuster or something so that they don't appropriate the money for the wall? Because I understand the left. The left is about burning things down, not building things up. They're about grabbing power. If it means another 100 million people coming into this country, as long as they vote Democrat, they can give a damn about it. They're not wedded to the American culture, the Democrat leaders. They're not wedded to our Constitution. They hate our Constitution. During those Senate Judiciary Committee hearings, you learned a lot. Not about Neil Gorsuch, we knew who he was, but about the Democrats on the committee, trashing your country, trashing our history, trashing the Constitution. This is a party that has lost it. The new left of the 1960s. The new left. The Chicago 7. They now run the damn party. The Alinskyeites. The Alinskyeites run the Democrat Party. Alinsky was about tactics, but he was also a Marxist. Community organizer. Ooh, I'm a community organizer. What does that mean? That means you're a big mouth who seeks to destroy your community, who knows nothing about nothing, and yet they think they know everything about everything. You know what? I read Rousseau and Hegel and Marx, and I know how to restructure society. Oh, yes. I know about dialecticism and historicism and materialism and the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. Oh, yes, I have it all figured out. These are people who've achieved nothing outside of government and politics. Nothing. And they destroy things. If their ideas were so great, our cities would be utopias. If their ideas were so great, people wouldn't be escaping, and I use the word escaping, dark blue states as fast as they can. You know, going to those backward Neanderthal red states. And then these same putzes, they go into these red states. Hey, I'm voting Liberal Democrat. I'm voting Liberal Democrat. I see them all around me. When I go to Florida to visit my parents, I hear it. The New England accent, the New York accent, the Philadelphia accent, they're all down in Florida where there's no income tax, voting Democrat. Bunch of schmoes. But anyway, let's move along. Xavier Becerra was a member of Congress from California. He's another nut job. Democrat. He's now the Attorney General of California. And I think there's a contest in California when you have statewide office, which is about this. Who can be the biggest nut? You lose Barbara Boxer, you get this Pamela Harris. Nut. Nut. And who replaces Pamela Harris? Xavier Becerra, whatever. He's on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, who, as we all know, is an independent, objective reporter. Cut 10, go.
We'd like to know, is it in fact a policy of this president and this administration and this Attorney General Sessions to abide by the DACA policy that allows dreamers to continue to go to school, to go to work, to believe that they're not going to be out there and be apprehended by ICE agents simply because they look like people who weren't born here?
Oh, that's it, because they look like people who weren't born here. I despise the unconscionable nature of propaganda by a man like this, but we get it all the time from the Democrats. So people who are here illegally are dreamers. And people who are American citizens who question why people here are here illegally are doing so because of what they look like. Do I have that about right? What a schmuck. I'm done. What a jerk. Yes, Xavier Becerra. Cut 11, go.
We can prove anywhere we need to, whether court of public opinion or court of law, that we are protecting our people. That's why California today is the 6th largest economy in the world.
No, actually, that's not why. It's the 6th largest economy in the world because long before you were Attorney General, long before the one party took over that state, with the Politburo and all the rest that they have there, in essence, with the iron fist. California was the most prosperous state in the country, and California was so prosperous that it was more prosperous than most countries. And that's not a result of liberal Democrats. Liberal Democrats don't create anything except bureaucracies and redistribution of wealth. And that's why California has over $150 billion debt, which is eventually going to collapse the whole damn system. And then they'll ask everybody in the red states, hello, can you help us? No. Are you saying that because of what we look like? No, we're saying that because you're a jerk. And this guy's a jerk. Go ahead.
More jobs in number 2, Florida, and number 3.
All right, shut up, you idiot. Sick of this guy, too. You're telling him to shut up, he's an idiot because of what he looks like. No, I'm telling him to shut up because he's an idiot. He's an idiot. Bernie Sanders doesn't look like Xavier Becerra. No. And he's an idiot. Or Nancy Pelosi, another idiot. Chuck Schumer on the Morning Schmo show. Now, Chuck Schumer in the Morning Schmo. That's kind of a freak show right there. We got the Morning Schmo, the Deliverance banjo-looking player there. I'm right about that, don't you think? And Chuck Schumer, a snake oil salesman. Chuck Schumer has more oil in his hair than Venezuela has oil. Are you aware of this? You look at this guy with the cornrows and everything else? Anyway. Mark, why do you discuss their appearance? Well, what do you ask him? They do it to themselves. What, am I blind? I'm looking at Chuck Schumer. I know what Chuck Schumer did to his forehead. Look at it. He made a mess of a mess. Chuck Schumer on the Morning Schmo. Cut 12, go.
But now he's calling me on occasion.
Right.
I tell him what I think. The 2 areas I've stressed are 2 areas where there might be some agreement.
Does he sound like he's
trade
listening?
and infrastructure.
Stop. Trade and infrastructure, the 2 areas where any serious conservative has a problem with this president. And he calls Schumer about trade and infrastructure because their positions are liberal. They're left-wing. They're Bernie Sanders-like. And I don't care how many ways nationalist populists want to twist it. This is destructive, and it empowers government, which is exactly why Sanders and Schumer support it. Look, we want to work on trade, but they don't mean trade. They mean the lack of trade. And infrastructure, and they don't mean infrastructure. They mean boondoggle. Scarba, does it sound like he's listening? Mr. Negative IQ, does it sound like he's listening? Hey, dummy, you're talking to Schumer. Does it sound like Schumer's listening? Go ahead.
He's mainly interested in talking about what he wants to talk about.
Oh, so he's calling you to talk about what he wants to talk about. Imagine that. Should he be calling you about what somebody else wants to talk about? Go ahead.
Made these points, and we'll see what happens. But if the first 100 days is any indication, we're just headed to failure because...
Now, here's a guy who uses political guerrilla tactics. Anything he can do. Used him on the Neil Gorsuch nomination. He is the architect of filibustering federal judicial nominees in violation in the entire history of the Senate. He's underhanded. He's two-faced. One face is enough, but he's two-faced. Always has been and always will be. I'll give you an example. In the Iran deal, he eventually announces, I'm opposed to the deal. Behind the scenes, he was telling his fellow Democrats, if you like it, go ahead and support it. This is what we know about Schumer, as an example. So he's there sabotaging this president every step of the way. Every step of the way. Except, of course, when the president wants to do liberal things. I'm sure when it comes to family leave, he'll say, oh, that's a good one. Infrastructure, $1 trillion. I say $1 trillion too. Okay, art of the deal. Let's see, what else? Trade. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Let's go after the pharmaceutical companies and help the steel companies. Based on what? Based on whatever. And that will be that. Meanwhile, what will we get in exchange from Schumer? Nothing. Can't build a wall. Why? Because now our constituent groups include illegal aliens. And so, we can't do that. We'll have nothing left. They look at everything in racist terms. The whites have left us. We're having a little problem with some of the Jews. Some of them have left us. I don't know. We're keeping an eye on them. The black vote wasn't what we were hoping last time, so we need the Hispanic vote. This is how they sit down and think of this stuff. Not as Americans, not as individuals, but this is Schumer. Yeah, and then there's this. Cut 9, Mr. Producer, go.
I'm very hopeful we can get a budget done by Friday. We've asked the president not to interfere. If he doesn't interfere, we can get this done. If he demands things poison...
All right, what the dummy's trying to say is if the president of the United States dares to ask for some money for border security in the wall, which this clown voted for in 2006. Hello? Joe the Schmo? Mr. Deliverance Boy? That's right. This clown voted for it. Did you know that, Joe? In 2006. If the president doesn't ask for that, we'll get it through. We'll spend like, drunken Marxists. We'll have bigger and bigger debts. We'll create new programs. Yeah. Everything will be just fine.
Mark Levin.
I may have told this story, that I see that Caitlyn Jenner is going to be on Fox. Is that a big draw, do you think, Mr. Producer? It wouldn't be for me, I'm just saying. During one of my book signings and speeches or talks at the Reagan Library, the library determines if certain individuals will sit at the table with us and so forth, and then Bruce Jenner wanted to sit at the table. He wanted to come to the lecture and was very interested in the subject matter. I'm trying to remember which book it was. Obviously, it's before the Caitlyn transition. And we could tell he already had a lot of work done. I mean, on his face and so forth. Very engaging, very nice. Talked about his days in the Olympics and so forth. He brought somebody with him. I don't remember the fella. Nice guy, too. No, they weren't together. It was like the executive producer, the Kardashian show, whatever. I don't watch it, so I don't know. That's it. That's my whole story. There's nothing else there. Okay, I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, a proud fanatic for the Constitution. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
There's a remarkable book out there, Shattered Inside Hillary Clinton's Doomed Campaign by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes. Jonathan Allen, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Mark?
I'm okay. Have we ever argued with each other? I don't think so. I'm trying to remember. No. All right, so we're okay. All right.
We're good.
We're good. Jonathan Allen, this is quite a book you wrote here. We don't have a lot of time, so I want to go through some of these things. One of the things that caught my attention was that Hillary Clinton assigned staff to assign loyalty scores to members of Congress. What was that all about?
It was at the end of the 2008 campaign. She felt that she'd been betrayed by a lot of members of Congress. They are in the Democratic Party superdelegates to their convention. In 2008, she thought that that a lot of them who should have been with her went with Obama. She wanted to remember that, so two of her staffers drew up a list of all the Democratic members of Congress and assigned scores to them, 1 to 7, 1 being the most loyal, 7 being the most disloyal. And over the course of the next several years, Bill Clinton actually went and campaigned against some of those Democrats, campaigning for their primary opponents, and knocked some of them out of jobs.
Well, let me ask you about that. Was that her number one priority among Democrats, if they were loyal to her?
Loyalty is an obsession of hers, and I think it's true in general in politics. Most politicians want loyal people around them. I think the degree to which the Clintons go about exacting retribution for people whom they see as disloyal is probably a higher degree than most, and they have more of an ability to do it than most. And my co-author and I talked to Democrats who said that there was a chilling effect, that one of the things that benefited her in this run for the presidency is that because she had done that in the last run, after the last run, there was a concern among Democrats that there was a cost for being against her. And so many of those superdelegates this time around jumped to her side immediately at the beginning of the election. And of course, nobody other than Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley ran against her. So there was a real, I think, fear factor among Democrats about just what might happen to you if you opposed her, and she ended up winning the presidency.
Early in the primers, did she really take Bernie Sanders seriously?
She always said that he would be tougher than Martin O'Malley, but her campaign did not move to take out Bernie Sanders. They treated him with kid gloves for a while. They worried that there would be a backlash against her if she went negative on him. And then through the server summer, as we call it, the email summer where she continued to not apologize for setting up that private server in 2015, he really began to gain traction in New Hampshire and in Iowa, and rose from being somebody who was completely off the radar to being on the radar. And then around the holidays at the end of 2015, by then Bernie Sanders was taking the lead in New Hampshire and getting very close to her in Iowa, and they really never addressed that threat until the voting happened. And Bernie Sanders was able to run against her through June and exact the toll against her. His message and Donald Trump's at times played like the right and left speakers on a stereo, talking about her, what they said was her corruption.
Going through your book and observing this myself, was Obama of two minds? Did he really want her to win? I mean, near the end he's out there campaigning and so forth, but did he really care for her?
It's interesting. They've got this fascinating sort of political shotgun wedding in 2008 when she goes to work for him, or 2009 when she goes to work for him as Secretary of State. From that point on, their interests were pretty merged. I think that he respects her. I think they get along. I don't think that she's the first person he's going to invite to Christmas dinner next year. I don't think that there's a super tight relationship, but of course he wanted her to win because his legacy was on the line. We've seen since the election of Donald Trump and Republicans controlling both chambers of Congress right now, the stakes were very high in this election in terms of whether the country was going to continue to go in the Obama direction or move in a much different direction.
Did Hillary Clinton underestimate Trump? Is that part of what happened? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I think a lot of people underestimated Trump, both in the primary and in the general election. The key here, one of the keys here, and we go into this in the book, is her strategy was to disqualify him. Her whole idea was, if I disqualify him, people will vote for me and I will win the election. And not necessarily do I have to prove to people or persuade people that I would be a great president. And we saw with Trump when he was elected, a significant portion of his voters, I think it was 1 in 5 or something like that, said that they didn't think he was that he was qualified to be president, and still voted for him. And I think that was a real telling sign of Hillary Clinton's inability to sort of cross the barrier of proving to people why they should vote for her.
But it was odd. She doesn't go into the Rust Belt states, and you guys write about this. Tell everybody what was going on there.
There was a perception in her campaign, at least in some of those states, that if she showed up, that if she went up on the air with advertising, she would essentially alert more people to the fact that there was an election, and that would be bad for her. They wanted a sort of lower turnout, higher informed voter set to show up. The kind of people who are aware there's an election and are digging into it, and they didn't want to alert a whole lot of people that weren't otherwise aware in those states because they worried that might tip the balance in favor of Donald Trump. They saw the numbers closing at the end in Wisconsin and Michigan and even in Pennsylvania, but they didn't believe that Donald Trump had overtaken her. They thought they still had a pad, and she made one last trip to Michigan right before the election. She never set foot in Wisconsin, which is amazing. And while the Clinton campaign was trying to expand the map and win as many electoral votes as possible for a potential mandate for her, Donald Trump was focused so intently on those Rust Belt states, and a lot of them have big electoral votes. Pennsylvania is a huge haul for electoral votes. He was able to do that much more efficiently by simply focusing on states that could more easily lead him on a path to victory.
So election night's here. Clinton and her top brass, they're watching the results. They start to come in, and when do they begin to panic?
They begin to panic as they see Florida coming in, which is pretty early in the night. And, Mark, this is the really intense climax of the book. We go through the first real tick-tock of what was going on in her hotel suite at the Peninsula Hotel in New York. And what happens is they're starting to see, and it's not even the campaign themselves. The campaign themselves, they sort of start to see some bad signs, but there are a couple of Florida experts who are outside the campaign, who are Democrats, who are kind of communicating with them, and they're saying, look, this is going south. There is no way that we're going to win Florida. And by the way, some of these areas in Florida that are voting for Trump so heavily behave like other areas of North Carolina, of Wisconsin, of Michigan, of Pennsylvania. And so the concern in the Clinton camp as they were watching Florida come in was that all of those things would extrapolate and that Trump would actually have this path to the presidency. And they kept saying, well, maybe it's just a regional problem. Maybe the folks in Wisconsin who are like the folks in Florida won't actually vote as they do. But the writing was on the wall pretty early. And it was just a matter of watching that ship hit the iceberg and sink. And I think for anybody who's interested in politics or really just behind the scenes drama, I mean, we go through how she's told about this, and we go through a series of phone calls from the White House to the Clinton floor of the Peninsula Hotel, where they're trying to get her aides to get her to concede, and she's still holding back. And
why did Obama want her to concede?
The moment it became clear to him that she had lost the Electoral College, his interests and hers diverged. Her interest was to see if maybe some votes would flip overnight, if maybe there was going to be a recount, something like that. His interest was in preserving the peaceful transfer of power. And, he had watched a campaign where that was discussed a lot. I think there were a lot of folks who believed on the Democratic side that Donald Trump might not have accepted a loss. I think, Republicans sort of said that was hooey. Regardless of what happened, but the Obama sort of felt it was his job as president to ensure that smooth transfer of power and make sure that the election didn't turn into a post-election circus.
Now, who among her senior staff, we know about Comey, so she blames other people, but is there anybody among her senior staff who she blames for this too, her defeat?
Right now she's been spared a little bit that circular firing squad that we see so many times from, losing campaigns because they've focused on Comey and the Russians and the press and all of these external factors. As long as they're blaming external factors, they don't have to blame each other. I have not heard a lot about her personally blaming particular staffers, but she is very much talking about how much she thinks she lost the election because of these external factors, the FBI and Russia. And what's interesting about that to me, Mark, and and we sort of go through this in the book, is that number one, Jim Comey wouldn't have been able to affect this election if he hadn't been investigating Hillary Clinton for setting up a private server. And I don't think there's anybody, or there are very few people who think that he shouldn't have been investigating the private server issue once it became clear that there was probably classified information there. Whether or not he prosecutes is another question, but the investigation stemmed from a decision that she made at the State Department. So to say that Comey is the determining factor in the election, you have to kind of go back and look at what she did to set that up. With the Russians, we knew about the intelligence agencies saying the Russians were trying to interfere in the election and that they were behind the DNC leaks before the election. Everybody that watched the debates knows Hillary Clinton made the case that Donald Trump was in cahoots with the Russians, and just voters didn't believe it, or at least not enough voters in enough of the right places for her to win. So the idea that that we only know about Russia after the election is not true. We all remember her calling Donald Trump a Russian puppet in that debate.
Does she blame Bernie Sanders for softening her up going into the general election? Do you know?
I think she does. Certainly a lot of the people around her think that Bernie Sanders spent a lot of time campaigning against her when he could not win the nomination. And what they particularly didn't like was the way that he went after her on the speeches that she gave to Goldman Sachs and on other issues of sort of moral purity, because those aren't partisan issues. Those are, it'd be one thing, or ideological even. It's not like he's saying you're not liberal enough or you're not moderate enough on this. What he's saying is that you're a bad person and you are corrupt and crooked, or is the word that Donald Trump used. And because both of them were hitting her in that way, I think that narrative helped sink in. And I believe that she blames Bernie Sanders. In fact, her husband recently, told the Democratic Party that he doesn't think that they should become the party of Bernie Sanders. So I think there's a lot of ill will between the Clintons and Bernie Sanders at this point.
Well, it is odd because he's not even a Democrat. John Allen, this is a great book. I mean, it's a fascinating book, and I think anybody would be interested, including people in my audience, in checking it out. You go through page after page after page, and you feel like you're there. And so that is a real accomplishment by you and your co-authors. So I want to congratulate. I have to go. We barely touched the surface, but there we are.
Well, I appreciate it. I hope folks will, in fact, read it and let me know what they think.
All right. You take care. Appreciate it. Shattered Inside Hillary Clinton's Doomed Campaign by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes. Are you hiring? Do you know where to post your job to find the best candidates? Posting your job in one place isn't enough to find quality candidates. It just isn't. So what do? Well, if you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites, and now you can. With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post your job to 100-plus job sites, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with a single click. Find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. Just post once and watch your qualified candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. No juggling emails or calls to your office. Quickly screen candidates, rate them, hire the right person very quickly. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by Fortune 100 companies and thousands of small, medium-sized companies. And right now, for you, my beloved listeners, you can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/Levin. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Levin. You really ought to test this. You really ought to check it out. One more time to try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/Levin.
Mark Levin.
Did you see where the Saudi Arabian government's been elected to the UN Commission on Women? The UN Commission on Women? Shouldn't they be elected to like the UN Commission on Inbreeding? Seriously. And I don't say that to attack them. This one's the prince and the uncle of that one, and the uncle knows the nephew, and the nephew runs this over there. You get the drift. Upside. I want you to listen to this. Upside.com. Ever hear of Upside.com? Brand new sponsor. Upside.com's been saying how they'll save your company big on travel and give you a big gift card every time you buy a trip. Every time. So my colleague Adam is going to Chicago, and I asked him to test it out. Well, Upside is fantastic. In less than 2 minutes, Adam got awesome choices on United and American, plus a bunch of big-name hotels he wanted to stay at. The first option got him a $150 gift card, and it'll save him $100. Then Upside showed other options. Being flexible gets you more. Choose an earlier flight. Stay at the same kind of hotel down the block. That means more in gift cards for you and costs your company even less. Trust me, Upside's for real. You got to try it. And now when you use promo code MARK, that's promo code MARK, you're guaranteed to get at least $100 Amazon gift card your first trip. That's code MARK to get a $100 gift card. Save big on travel. Get a big gift card every trip. I want you to check it out. Upside.com. That's Upside.com. Use promo code MARK. Upside.com, promo code MARK. Minimum purchase required. See their site for complete details, but really check out their site. Upside.com, promo code MARK. All right. Do I have any time here, Mr. Producer? Okay. Yes, we do. Let's go to Rick, Baltimore, Maryland, the great WCBM country. Go.
Yes, Mark, this is a sincere pleasure to talk to you. I've never called the show before. It's my first time. You're so concise and clear on everything, on point totally. What I wanted to talk about was the fact that...
By the way, you're a native Baltimorean, aren't you?
Yes, sir, yes. I was born and bred here, unfortunately.
No, yeah, I can tell your accent. It's like when I hear somebody from Philly, where I'm from, I say, that's from South Philly right there. Anyway, go right ahead.
But to be sarcastic, what legacy that Obama has chosen is to, of course, divide and conquer.
Right.
I have never seen a president in my life, being a former Democrat, crossing over to the Republican side. My parents most of my family were Democrat. We used to have terrible discussions, arguments.
Yeah.
But it's unbelievable how this monster has just destroyed the fabric. He's got us shouting each other, fighting, civil unrest, social unrest.
You know, this is a very important point. Look how divided we are. Look at what he's done to the country. You're absolutely right.
You know, and you got these maniacs, a guy that just killed 3 people, happened to be Caucasian, white, whatever, and you have to wonder, just because of my skin color, I'm white and Caucasian, I'm not responsible for what's happened previously. Okay?
All right, got to run, Rick. The music means I got to go. I'm not sure which case he's talking about. By the way, check out Rediscovering Americanism on Amazon. Rediscovering Americanism. I know you're going to love it. Comes out July 4th. I want to salute all you heroes out there. We have a great Levin TV. We get into this Iranian deal as well. And I'll see you on the radio tomorrow. God bless you.